Welcome to Immigration Quicktake. This is Ellie Rutledge with the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Yesterday, the House passed H.R. 3009, the Enforce the Law for Sanctuary Cities Act, by a vote of 241 to 179. Here to discuss the bill and its potential consequences is Chen, Director of Advocacy here at AILA. Greg, thanks for joining me. What does H.R. 3009 do?
Well, Ellie, even though H.R. 3009 was introduced in the aftermath of the murder of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco and is purportedly supposed to protect community safety and the public, it is actually more likely to undermine community safety because it will take away funding for various community policing programs, victim service programs, to local law enforcement officials nationwide, to likely possibly hundreds of cities that under H.R. 3009 would be deemed to be not in cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. The way H.R. 3009 is worded is that there are two criteria that a city, if it falls into either one of them, would be in violation of the bill and therefore lose that federal funding. The first provision is that if the city refuses to gather information about immigration status or citizenship, and the second provision being if the city has a specific policy that says they won't share information with the federal government.
Thanks, Greg. Why did AILA oppose the bill?
For a couple of reasons, Ellie. AILA opposed this bill and were on record and submitted comments to the House about it. First, it's not even going to protect public safety despite what it claims to do. By taking away this money from law enforcement, you're actually going to end up hurting in their ability to protect their communities. Also, by requiring that cities that have policies designed to build trust with the community, you are going to put law enforcement in a really difficult position. You're going to put local officials in the position of being more engaged in the federal responsibility of immigration enforcement. And we had sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs submitting documents for the record saying, look, if you do that, you're going to undermine our ability to get victims to come forward and report crimes. We're going to lose that trust, and we're just not going to be able to protect our communities as well. Another reason was we saw victim advocates coming out and saying, we are afraid of reporting these offenses, reporting crimes, and this bill is going to further do that. So those are a few of the reasons. Lastly, this bill was introduced just a few days after the murder of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco, and it just didn't go through the regular process. There hasn't been enough time to evaluate whether it makes sense as a response. So we don't have enough information even as to how things went awry in San Francisco between the federal authorities and the local authorities. The rush to make proposals is the wrong way to do things in Congress. We really need to examine this more carefully. Many members are asking for that information, and that's the way to go.
What does AILA recommend instead?
With so much information still unclear about the San Francisco incident, there isn't a clear solution, a clear proposal, and the most important next step is for members of Congress or local law enforcement officials to investigate what happened and gather that information to look at whether there is an appropriate national bill that makes sense. So that kind of careful, measured approach is the first thing that we'd recommend. Secondly, don't scapegoat the immigrant community or any community as we go through this. Keep protecting all residents in all of our communities as the primary goal is absolutely critical here. More broadly, AILA has always supported immigration reform. That's why we worked so hard in the House and the Senate to get reform done. That will address issues and concerns about the concern of illegal immigration, of making sure that the system works best, and that will provide so much resolution for the broader picture here. One last thing that I'll mention is that there's a proposal out there or discussion of imposing mandatory minimums on the federal offense of illegal reentry. That makes no sense for a variety of reasons, and AILA would really recommend that members of Congress not look at that, primarily for the reason that it's an incredibly punitive response to the crime of illegal reentry, which is already a federal felony offense. And many families people who come in because of illegal reentry are simply trying to reunite with their families. AILA would be very opposed to that kind of provision and hopes that members will provide examples even of cases they've heard that are compelling about that.
Thanks, Greg, for joining me. For the rest of you, please stay tuned for more updates from the American Immigration Lawyers Association.